first let's discuss about some general differences, common differences, or you can say general differences. Generally, like somebody asks you a question that what is the difference between human and animal language, the first answer comes into your mind is that we can pronounce words, but the animals they cannot pronounce words, though they have their sounds like a goat, a buffalo, a cow, or a lion, a tiger. They have the birds, the chirping of the birds, the roaring of the lion, or the elephants. All these living creatures, they have their own way of speaking, but they are typical. Like if you talk about goats, they have all the time, whatever they, whether they are hungry, whether they want to drink water, or whether they want to express their happiness or their pain, they have only one specific sound that they produce. But humans, they can have different words, infinite words and infinite sentences and infinite verses, not verses but sentences and words to express their thoughts. For example, if you are speaking Punjabi or Saraiki, uh, and Urdu is our national language, of course, but living in this area, most of the people, they speak their mother tongue is Punjabi or Saraiki. You can communicate in your mother tongue Punjabi, you can communicate in other language Saraiki, you can communicate in Urdu also, you can communicate in English also. And some of you who have some acquaintance or some meeting with other areas like in Sindh or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, you can speak Sindhi and Pashto also. So human, they have variety of languages, they can express their thoughts in variety of language, they can understand other languages, they can communicate their messages not only in their mother tongue or in their national language, but in other local languages and international languages too. And their communication signals, they are not specific or not restricted like the animals. This is the common answer that you give when somebody asks you what is the difference between animal and human language. So going into it, many researchers, they have conducted a lot of research on animals, that is the are these animals having the capacity to produce words like man? Because if we talk about the physical structure, if we talk about, you just take any animal into mind. Let's talk about a dog. Dog is having eyes, having ears, having brain, having tongue also, having teeth also. In the same way, man has eyes, ears, brain and tongue. So here we restrict ourselves to brain and tongue, because when we speak words, there is a strong connection between our brain and our tongue. For instance, when you speak anything to anyone, when you are producing words, how these words come onto your tongue to produce? It is just like, example is that, like you just switch on something and your fan is turned on. You switch on and the fan is turned on. As you switch on the button, uh, you know within just nanoseconds, the electricity travels to the fan, it start revolving, it start moving, start giving you air. So that is a very nominal difference of time. In the same way, when we speak words, the words, they actually come from our brain to our tongue, and the difference of time is in nanoseconds, that we usually don't realize. But sometimes if you speak with that mind, that you want to understand that words come from your mind on your tongue, that you can understand that communication signals, they are actually, these words, they come from our mind and they go to our tongue. So most of the research has been conducted taking into consideration that animals, they do have tongue and brain. Humans, they do have tongue and brain. But why animals, they cannot produce words like humans? Why they are restricted to some genetic sounds? If like any goat or any puppy, a younger dog, a small dog, we call it a puppy. Even if it is left alone, even if you just take a puppy, you just separate it from other dogs, and he is living somewhere with the goats or with the hens or with other pets, he would be having only one sound, that is barking. That is genetically that come into them. The same is not the case with humans. So their communication signals, their language, that is specific and that is restricted. That is restricted, but human language, it is not restricted. It has vast approach, it has wider approach. So this is the common difference, whenever somebody talks about it, that what is the difference, that humans, they can produce words, but the animals, they cannot produce words. Now the researchers, they have conducted research on animals also, on humans also, that what is actually the difference between these two types of language, these two creatures, animals and humans. Now let's talk about communicative signals. What are these communicative signals? Communicative signals, you simply can say that, like when we speak our words, these are the communication signals that we want to convey our message. The way we convey our message, that is known as communicative signal. So as far as there are many dogs, they are trained by human. So animals, they can be trained by humans. They can be taught how to behave in some certain specific ways. And animals, they can only be taught a few signals. They cannot be taught limitless or unlimited or infinite communicative signals as humans can have. As I have given here the example of dogs, they can understand. Sometimes you just whistle, you have a puppy and you start making its practice by whistling it. When you whistle, the puppy starts running. When you whistle again, it starts coming back. But a dog cannot go out of that circle. Whatever humans, they have taught to the dogs, to a specific dog, or you have taught to your pet animal, that it would behave in a similar way. So they act like, simply you can say that, like a machine, like a robots. Whatever the signals they have been taught to them, they act upon it. Like as I told you an example of whistling, that when you whistle, your dog runs away. When you whistle again, it comes back. It's just like as a machine, that you push the button, it starts working. When you push it back, it comes again back to you. So, and there is nothing like when you whistle again, a dog will come back. Dog will not ask you that why have you asked me to come back, never ever. But as far as humans are concerned, the situation is quite different in that. Here I have given you, I'll tell you about an example of a TV program that was broadcasted on one of Pakistan's private channel, biggest private channel, Airway News, by that anchor named Hassan, Ikrarul Hassan. It was program about the dogs, and I will share that link in the description, that you can check that program. Even you can search it on YouTube. I will give you the link. You can watch that program, listen to it. This is the best example to understand that what is the capacity of the animal's language and what is the capacity of human language. In that program, the dogs, most of the time we listen that there are dogs who can catch a thief, who can realize, who can sniff, or who can smell who has theft from someone's house. So in this way, people, they had trained in many areas, and people used to hire them, but it was all fraud that has been exposed by this person. Those animals, those dogs, they were actually trained according to the words and the voices spoken by their masters. So if you watch that program, you can get lot of knowledge that how those animals, those dogs here means the animals, that they were trained some specific signals. Dog is behaving, you watch the program and you will see that dog is behaving in a similar way as they have been taught by their masters. So that is one of the best examples. Or when they ask them to turn around, they just go on one side, then they say that move on. So, and they directly go to the home and go to that was all fraud. Actually it was fraud that was exposed by that anchor. But in this topic of communicative signals of animals and humans, that is the best example. If you watch that program once, twice, thrice, you can clearly understand what actually the difference is between what the dogs or the animals they can do, or what is their capacity to learn something. They cannot move or they cannot go out of the circle that has been described by the humans to them. So let's talk about some qualities of language that makes a clear difference between animal and human language. First quality of human language is displacement. Displacement in generally, when we talk about in physics, most of you, those who have intermediate in pre-engineering or pre-medical, you might have come across this word displacement. There is definition given also in English. When we call about displacement, it means a kind of a distance, but here displacement means in language, when we talk about language features and language feature design in human language capacity, displacement means like when we are talking, two human, they are talking, they can talk about their past, they can talk about future also. For instance, you ask your friend that I will meet you on 25th May 2020, and then we will be going to Murray or somewhere in hilly areas. So the incident and the time, that is not immediately in front of you, but you can describe future. And when some incident that has already taken place in the past as history, you can describe it, something that is not in front of you. But as far as animals are concerned, this property of displacement is absent in animals language, because animals, they cannot go back to the past, they cannot describe their past, or they cannot tell us about their future. That this property of language is only limited to human language also. So this is one of the major difference why animals, they cannot have the languages as humans have, because we can talk about the time, present time, past time, future time, but the animals, they can only behave in a similar way. Like at the present time, what is immediately in front of them, they behave in it. But you can teach your dog, you whistle your dog, it moves. You speak a word, you can teach your dog, it can move, it can run, it can come back, it can bring you something. If you want it, you want the dog to bring something back you have thrown, it will bring it back. But you can never teach your dog that tomorrow you will go and bring my ball from there. That cannot happen. The dog, he has seen that the ball is moving away, then you order your dog with a whistle or with an other indication that you have taught to it, it runs and it brings back. But you cannot teach the dog that tomorrow you can do it or yesterday you have done it. So this property of language displacement is only limited to humans. The second is arbitrariness. Arbitrariness means there is no connection between the linguistic form and its meaning. Like what is a linguistic form and what is a meaning? For example, I call it a table, or like I call it a chair, a thing, an object, that name is a chair. Why we call it a chair? Is there any logic behind it? Not at all. I mean, we call it a chair because we have been told that it is a chair, and we started calling it a chair. If you make logic in this, that a chair has, because we call it a chair because it has four legs, then a cow has also four legs, then a buffalo has four legs, then a lion has also four legs. So why we call it a lion and why we call it a table? There is no logic behind it. So there is no connection between the linguistic form and its meaning. So whatever we speak, we call it a room. Why we call it a room? We do not know. We have been told. We have been told that it is a room in other languages. Whatever the languages we are speaking, there is no connection between the. We hardly find, you can say, there can be 2, 3, 50 words out of thousands and millions of words. There can be 40 or 50 words that have some resemblance with the objects, that the sounds, they resemble to the object. The linguistic forms. Linguistic form means the words, and the meaning means the object that we have given to it the meaning. So there is no connection between it. As far as animals are concerned, they have, their linguistic form has close connection with their meanings. Like whatever they, when a cat is producing its sound or a dog is producing its sound, they have typically their, whenever they raise their voice, or a dog is barking or a cat is mewing, they convey a specific signal. and their meaning is quite related to their sounds. Like if they want to, sometimes you watch National Geographic special, that some lions they want to hunt a deer, and one of the lion, he has seen a deer alone, so he makes a sound. Or a wolf, they make a sound, so that sound goes all around to their companions, to a message is conveyed that come here, we have our a deer here, or our food here, because after hunting that, they will be having their food. So this when animals they have when we talk about animals in this quality of language arbitrariness, their linguistic form, like linguistic form means the sounds they produce, so they have close connection with their meanings. Whatever they want to say, it has close connection. In this close connection, we have a term in arbitrariness, that is onomatopoeia. So what we call an onomatopoeia, that is whenever we produce a word and it has connection between the word and the meaning. If the word has some resemblance to the meaning, that a typical word is given to a typical subject for its sound or for its voice or for its features, that is what we call onomatopoeia. So onomatopoeia is mostly present in animal languages and is mostly absent in human languages. That I have already discussed, that it is present in animals, like when a cat or a dog or any animal is they produce their sounds, they have some meanings. So their sounds, they have close connection with the meanings. Connection conveyed between the conveyed message and the signals, or the way to convey it, that I already explained how these terms they are associated, the words and their meanings. So here means you can say that specifically the nouns we are talking about, that there is a wall, why we call it a wall, nobody knows about it, a name is given, that something that is made up of brick, it is known as a wall. So that is, there is no connection between the words and the meanings assigned to them, sorry. The third property is productivity. Productivity is quite simple. It is in a way that when we are speaking our mother tongue, Punjabi or Saraiki, or our national language Urdu, so we never care about what we are speaking with, what kind of sentence, do they have any authenticity or not. We have liberty to produce unlimited sentences, infinite sentences. In the same way, someday if you sit, you just keep in your mind and you start thinking about it, that how many words and how many different sentences you have produced. So start observing yourself from dawn to dusk, from morning to evening. Start just analyzing in your mind to how many times you spoke, and to whom you spoke, and what were the words and what were the sentences. You will yourself be surprised that you have produced infinite sentences. Following the rules are automatically followed when you have a mother tongue, when you are speaking about it. We always care about we don't care about grammar, but grammar is already in our sentences when we produce. So productivity means producing words over and over again, infinite words, unlimited sentences. But in animals, this productivity, quality of productivity, is always absent, because they have specific sounds, but they cannot have their sounds limitless or infinite sounds to describe various things, or infinite things. When we talk about the animals, you watch National Geographic special or any other Discovery Channel or others, they discuss about animals life. An animal can only have a few signals, like they produce voice when they are in danger, they produce voice when they have found something to eat, they produce voice when they are happy, or when there is no danger at all. So there are few 4 to 5 particular signals that their voices they convey to their companions. But as far as humans are concerned, this quality of productivity, like unlimited expressions and words and sentences, it is always here. You can take an example in Urdu language. uh, we say मैंने ये काम किया है. But sometimes when you watch a TV program where politicians or some actors whose native language is Urdu and those who are from Karachi, they say मैंने ये काम करा है. So kara is something, a new word that has been introduced in this Urdu language. Before that it was not there. When we read it in Urdu, in our syllabus Urdu books or in our novels, stories written in Urdu literature, when we read, we never read out kara hai. So this is something, and an example of productivity. The speaker and the listener both understand what does that mean. In the similar way, in our mother tongue we produce so many different words that doesn't have any link to its formal language. Formal language, that is dictionary language or something that is written exactly. Written language is always known as formal language. So animals do have the capacity of productivity, as they have fixed signal to communicate. So they have, as I told you, but limited to only, no, you cannot say it's productivity, but kind of communicative signals that they produce for danger or for food or for something else. That's it. So cultural transmission is the next property. So what is cultural transmission? Here we discuss when, as I was giving you an example in the beginning, that if you have a puppy, a small dog, a small baby dog, we call it a puppy. You have a puppy as a pet animal. You just take that puppy, uh, just put it in a room or somewhere where other animals are, not dogs, but other animals. You keep that puppy for 6 months, for 4 months, for 3 months, unless it start producing sound at its peak with full voice. He would be barking. He would never be making sound of goat or sound of hens or sound of loins or sound of anything else. That the the puppy or any other young bird or animal, genetically they are their sounds, they have been given to them by Allah Almighty. Whenever they produce the similar sound. Even if you take a puppy and you mix it with the cubs, that uh, what we call it, the small children of loins, so the puppy would be barking and they would be roaring. So there is a difference always. Even if they have no connection they are living together, but they have their different, they can never, a dog, a puppy will never roar and a lion will never bark. But as far as animals are, in animals, when we talk about the language, is specific language, communicative signal is granted to them, it's blessed to them by Allah Almighty, and they are restricted towards it from since their childhood, from their birth. They do not need to go to a when we talk about a small cat, kitten, or a puppy, the kitten or a puppy, to produce their sounds, they do not need to go into a crowd of cats or a crowd of dogs. Even they are in isolation. In isolation means in loneliness. They have no connection with dogs, or a puppy has no connection with dog, or a kitten has no connection with cats. Even then they will be producing, the kitten will be having the sound of the cat and the puppy will be having the sound of dog. But same is not with the humans. A child when is born, he has the capacity to produce words. Allah has blessed us to learn a language and to produce limitless, unlimited, infinite sentences. But if a child, he is born, he is been isolated from humans, like he is put somewhere in a jungle or somewhere in a room where for at the age of 5 to 6 or 7 years he has no connection, he doesn't hear any sound from humans, the child will not be able to produce a single word unless and until he comes into the human community, unless and until he comes into contact with his parents, with his siblings, with his in school, with his fellows, with his relatives. We humans, our children, when they are born, they have the capacity to learn language, but they are not born with some specific type of language communicative signals as we have of cats and dogs and other animals. So that is what we call a cultural transmission, that learning language by the community, from the community. So a child learns language from his parents and from his surroundings. But if he is isolated, he will not be able to produce a single word unless and until he starts hearing any language. He cannot produce words. But the same is not the case with the animals. The small animals, the small children of animals, if they are isolated from their specific communities, they can produce the same sounds because they are blessed. They have the capacity to produce those specific sounds, and they cannot learn more than that. Then we talk about duality. uh, this is again very simple. Duality or double articulation, that is, words are combination of alphabets. For example, if I say C, one alphabet C, one alphabet T, one alphabet A, so I combine them, C A T, it becomes a cat. Although I have not said it in a sequence, but just think about three words: A, C, T, C, T, A, C, A, T, whatever you want to make the sequence. When you combine it to make a word, it becomes cat. Instead, C separately, A separately, and T separately, as alphabets, they do not convey us any meaning. But when they are united, when they are combined, a word is made, then it gives us a meaning. When we talk about a word C, another person says a word T, another person says a word A, but we do not get any meaning what they are talking about. What is this? One is saying C, one is saying T, one is saying A. But if one person says cat, we simply understand that he's talking about an animal, small animal cat. So this is double articulation. As alphabets, they do not convey any meanings, but when they are united, combined, they convey meanings. That is duality or double articulation. But same is not the case with dogs. When a goat makes a voice, like it seems funny, but let me try to make it. This voice is like ba, sound of a goat. Ba means ba. It is not B A, not at all. It is simply a word. It is simply their a kind of specific sound that a goat can produce. So in our language, in human language, we have combination of alphabets, but in animal language there are only specific sounds. They do not have any alphabets. Then these were the qualities that I have mentioned. These are also known as design features, like displacement, arbitrariness, cultural transmission, duality, productivity. These are 6 qualities I have mentioned that describe the difference between animals and human language. So if you understand these 6 points, they clearly makes a logical difference between animal and human language, that why animals, they do not have the capacity, or why they do not have that much liberty to produce infinite sentences as we can have, because their language is limited, specified. Now we talk about, can the animals speak like humans? Like if a small puppy or a small cat or a kitten, it is brought into a house, and all of them, they start speaking some words and start teaching words to the small puppy, like any word you want to teach, but keeping in view the physical feature of the dog, physical feature of the tongue and the mouth of the dog. So how many words they can produce? So there were many examples. That is a very interesting again, like these Loyola and Withrop Kellogg, they conducted an experiment in 1930s. This experiment was on a chimpanzee. They named a small chimpanzee. As it was born into their home, and they started teaching it. The name was given to it Goa. So a chimpanzee, it understood more than 100 words spoken. Like, we when we speak, we produce thousands of words, but it only after they spent about five years on it, that Goa, it could understood only, it was in a position to understand only 100 words, but was unable to produce a single word. Like, it could understand what they were saying to that specific that chimpanzee Goa, but Goa can understand, can never produce those words. For example, if they are saying water, he understood that they are talking about water, but he can never produce water. This was they then a conclusion was drawn that the animals, they are not there, they do not have any innate capacity, or their physical features, they are not built up in a way that they can produce sounds or they can produce words like human children. So a second experiment was made by Catherine and Keith Hayes in 1940s on another chimpanzee. Name was given to Vicky. So these names, if somebody from you have someone from you, those who have pet animals, we give some specific names to them. So these were the names given to them. So after spending 5 to 10 years on it, they started teaching chimpanzee that how to speak words. Why the experiments they were made on chimpanzees? Because their features, they look like humans more. So after 5 to 7 years, they could only produce 3 to 4 words like mama, papa, and cup. These were the 3 words it could produce, and it is thought as some of the one of the biggest achievement by the researchers, that the animals, they after so much struggle, they were able to produce these 3 words only. So these words, they were quite similar to their sounds that they produce. Like, there is no articulation of tongue or all that. You just close your lips and these sounds, they are produced. In this way, these 2 experiments I have mentioned here, these 2 experiments, but there are other experiments also in other parts of the world, that when you search it on Google, search it on internet, you can get other experiments conducted by other researchers, how they try to taught animals language to the animals, but they were failed. These, the results, they were not achieved as that of human children. Now I have questions for you from this lecture, that first of all, you have to make a comparison between human and animal child language development, that how the language it develops into an animal when it is born, and animal child when it is born, and how the language develops into human child when it borns, or when it takes birth. And the second question is, describe in detail the experiments made on animals to teach them human language. Now keep in your mind, I have given 2 experiments only, one on Goa, one on Wiki, but the rest of 3, 4, 5 experiments I have intentionally skipped. Now it is your work assignment or homework or whatever you want to take it, you have to write it in detail, the other experiments made on animal children.